A routine court appearance turns chaotic when a uniformed officer crosses the line in front of a silent courtroom full of witnesses. What drives a woman trained to defend her country to fight back in the very place justice is supposed to be upheld? Let us know in the comments below. Ava Campbell wasn't dressed like a soldier today. No fatigues, no tactical boots, just a black blazer, hair tied back, and a court-issued badge sticker slightly crinkling on her chest. Sitting in the third row from the front, Ava remained perfectly still, composed, alert, her hands resting lightly on her knees. She was there to observe and listen, not to be noticed, but she wasn't invisible either. Her younger brother Chris, 20, sat at the defendant's table, nervously glancing back at her, afraid of being left behind. Each time he did, Ava gave him a subtle nod, a silent reassurance that she was there for him. The courtroom buzzed as the prosecutor whispered to Officer Darren Cololton, who sat with arms crossed, a smug posture that filled the room. Ava's eyes narrowed slightly as she watched him chuckle loud enough for the public gallery to hear but quiet enough to seem accidental. She had seen his type before, those who believed power was theirs by entitlement. When the judge called the case, Ava stood and moved with practiced ease, a woman who knew herself well. As she passed the bailiff, the young woman flinched but steadied herself, like Ava's presence held a certain gravity. On the witness stand, Ava's calm voice rang out, "Petty Officer First Class, United States Navy SEAL Team 4. The room seemed to pause, an audible hush filling the space. The prosecutor asked about the alleged robbery her brother was accused of, and Ava's response was firm. No, he wasn't involved. He was with me. We were at my apartment. She provided solid proof: flight records, security footage, and a neighbor's testimony. Despite the prosecutor's skeptical questions, Ava remained composed, her conviction unwavering. The tension in the courtroom was palpable. Yet firearms, explosives, tactical evasion. Is it part of Navy SEAL training to lie under oath to protect your family? The room took a collective breath. Hila tilted her head slightly, eyes still on the prosecutor. No, and I haven't lied. The prosecutor smiled. You say your brother was with you, but the security footage only shows the entrance. How do we know he stayed all night? Hila remained calm, never raising her voice. You don't, but the burden of proof isn't on me, it's on you. The prosecutor stiffened, and Officer Cooper snorted. Hila turned her head slightly in his direction, catching the disdain in his gaze. Nothing further, the prosecutor said, frustration clear. The judge nodded. Mr. Campbell, you may step down. Hila stood. As she descended the 2 steps from the witness box, her heels softly clicking against the polished floor, Officer Cooper suddenly stood up and stepped forward. Just a foot away from her, he jabbed his elbow into her side, deliberate, sharp, and unmistakable. The courtroom gasped. The bailiff shouted, "Hey!" Hila didn't flinch. She stood perfectly still. Cooper's smirk twisted further. The judge's gavel slammed down. Order, order in this court. Hila turned slowly, eyes sharp and focused like a sniper's scope. What did you just do? The judge demanded. He bumped into me, Cooper said quickly, trying to justify himself. She was 2 feet in front of you, the bailiff retorted. Hila turned to the judge, her voice steady. Permission to speak freely. The judge nodded. Hila took a step forward, but not toward the bench, toward Cooper. I've been kicked out of planes over war zones, had IEDs detonate 20 feet from my boots, buried friends, but I've never, not once, been kicked by a cop inside a courtroom. The room fell silent. Your Honor, I'd like to request that Officer Cooper be removed from this courtroom until my testimony is complete. The judge nodded once. Bailiff, escort the officer out. Cooper protested, but the bailiff stepped behind him, hand near her holster. As Cooper passed by, he leaned in, barely whispering, "This isn't over." Hila didn't flinch. She whispered back, "Neither is the war." The room knew this was no ordinary witness or trial. The courtroom emptied slowly, like a church after a scandal. Whispers followed Hila as she stood alone outside the heavy wooden doors, replaying every moment in her mind with surgical precision. Her brother, Chris, sat nearby on the hallway bench, his body still carrying the weight of chains, not of metal, but of fear and memory. You good? He asked. Hila didn't answer immediately. After a sharp breath, she replied quietly, You're not going back in there today. Chris raised his head. They're trying to make me take a plea. 4 years felony just to make it go away. Did you do it? Hila asked, her voice firm. He blinked, insulted. Of course not. Then don't ever say make it go away again, not when you didn't do anything. His voice dropped. I don't want to die in there. Hila crouched beside him, both palms on her knees. You think taking a felony helps you survive? That mark will follow you longer than a prison sentence. You won't get another shot, no school, no jobs, no housing. This doesn't end when you sign a paper, Chris. It just starts. His eyes welled up, but he quickly blinked the tears away. What if it's already decided? He asked. She stood tall again, her military composure returning. Then we undecide. Down the hall, a man in a dark gray suit approached quickly, walking with purpose. He didn't move like a lawyer, too focused. Hila straightened as he neared. Agent Hayes, he said, nodding crisply. No, Hila replied, her tone familiar. Didn't expect you here. I caught wind of what happened in there, he said, stepping closer. You shook a hornet's nest. Cooper's already filed a statement saying you threatened a sworn officer in a federal court. Hila gave a dry laugh. He kicked me. I saw, Zachary said. Security footage is being scrubbed as we speak. Scrubbed? Gone? Deleted? Hila's jaw tightened. That's obstruction. It's Tuesday, Zachary muttered. Around here, that's just business. Chris stood looking between them. Who is this? Hila glanced at him. Someone who still gives a damn. Zachary turned to Chris, offering his hand. Zachary Hayes, federal agent, internal affairs. Chris shook it weakly. What do you want with us? He asked. Cooper's name isn't new, Zachary said. He's been involved in 6 consecutive force reports in the last 2 years, all cleared by insufficient evidence, all involving black or brown men. Most of the plaintiffs disappeared or changed their stories after arrest. Hila folded her arms. And no one's done anything. We've tried, Zachary said. The department protects their own. We've been collecting intel, but it's not enough. The second someone testifies, they get followed, intimidated, silenced. So what do you need? She asked, already knowing the answer. Proof. Hard, public, undeniable proof. And someone with the guts to carry it through. Hila didn't respond immediately, her mind calculating, flipping through options like a soldier reviewing blueprints. You still have access to the internal server? She asked. Zachary raised an eyebrow. You think I'd be here if I didn't? She pulled out a small notebook and scribbled down a name. This is Chris S.'s old classmate, Xavier Bell. He was arrested by Cooper 2 months ago for loitering. He hasn't answered a call since. Go find him. Zachary nodded. What will you do? Draw their attention, she said flatly. That's dangerous. Hila glanced back at the courtroom doors. They made it personal. By the time they left the building, reporters had already gathered outside. Some held out microphones asking vague questions masked as curiosity. Is it true you attacked an officer? Do you regret what happened inside? Are you trying to intimidate the justice system? Ava kept walking, no comments, no sound bites, but when one reporter called out, what would your Navy command say about your behavior today? She stopped. She turned, stared directly at the woman behind the mic, and answered clearly. They'd say, I didn't start the fight, but I'll finish it. That clip hit 5 news stations by sundown. Back at her apartment, Chris sat on the worn leather couch, silent, legs tucked up. Hila paced, not out of nerves, but habit. Movement helped her think. She paused at the kitchen counter, opening a locked drawer. Inside was a USB drive, a second cell phone, and an envelope filled with contact names. She grabbed all 3. You still have that old laptop? She asked. Chris nodded and pulled it from his backpack. Boot it. I need to access a few restricted sites. You're not doing anything illegal, are you? Chris asked. Hila didn't look up. Define illegal. I mean like felony illegal, he said. I mean survival illegal. He stopped asking questions once the laptop hummed to life. Hila inserted the USB and typed rapidly. Old habits returned like muscle memory. Navy clearance didn't technically expire until the formal discharge process was complete. She had about 36 hours before someone upstairs noticed she was poking around. She found what she needed in less than 10 minutes, body cam logs, tampered timestamps, and Officer Cooper's report. That night, she cross-referenced the files with the security footage that was supposedly deleted. It wasn't gone, it was just renamed and hidden in a nested directory. Someone hadn't encrypted it properly. She opened the clip. There it was, clear and damning. Cooper's elbow, her calm stillness, his smirk, and the moment Hila turned to ask the judge for permission to speak, Chris leaned in. "They're going to come after you for this." She didn't blink. "Let them." Behind her, her second phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop now or next time it won't just be a kick." Hila stared at the screen, then turned it off and slid into a drawer. She looked back at Chris. "We just found the match. Now we light the fire." The city didn't sleep, it just hid its nightmares in brighter lights. Hila drove in silence, gripping the steering wheel of her brother's borrowed sedan. She kept the headlights off, moving through the back alleys of South Down, where there was no traffic, only silence broken by barking dogs or the groan of rusted fences. Each turn was deliberate, like every decision she had made since the courtroom, purposeful, dangerous, locked in. She pulled up to an abandoned car wash, headlights still off, and killed the engine. Zachary was already waiting, leaning against a rusted electrical box, wearing a dark hoodie and a low ball cap. He didn't move until she stepped out and closed her door softly. No slamming, no noise. "You bring it?" she asked. Zachary nodded, holding up a hard drive sealed in an anti-static bag. Everything the precinct didn't want anyone to see: 6 years of misconduct, internal reports, and surveillance from the drunk tank that never made it into any trial. Ava stepped closer. "And the video from the courtroom?" "That too. With backups, this time on 3 different servers." She nodded, took the drive, and slipped it into her jacket pocket. "Did you find Xavier Bell?" "L?" Zachary's jaw tightened. He looked down at the gravel for a moment before responding. "I found what used to be Xavier Bell. He's in a group home outside the city. Refuses to talk. Says it's not worth his life." Hila felt her stomach twist, not out of fear, but the cold, calculated feeling when a strategy begins to solidify under pressure. She'd seen teammates die with less warning. "I need you to put a name to every officer connected to Cooper. Every superior who signed off on his use of force. Every Iowa agent who filed a dismissal report without a proper interview. If we're going public, we're not just naming one bad cop." Zachary gave a small, humorless laugh. "You really plan to drag the whole tree down with him?" She looked at him, eyes steady in the darkness. "I don't leave the roots." Back at her apartment, Chris sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by fast food wrappers, papers, and a half-drunk bottle of iced tea. He hadn't left the house since court. Every time he tried, it felt like the walls outside closed in a little tighter. But tonight he was pacing, checking the window every 10 minutes. His nerves were already shredded by the noise outside, a car alarm that wouldn't stop, an argument down the hall, police sirens 2 blocks over. When Hila walked in, he jumped. "Damn," he said, "you move like a ghost." She gave him a quick glance. "You okay?" "No, but I'm still breathing, so that's something." She set the drive on the table. "This is it. The firepower." Chris stared at it like it might explode. "What are you going to do with it?" "Everything they don't want me to." Zachary stepped inside behind her, pulling off his cap and running a hand through his short hair. "We leak this, Hila, there's no going back. Cooper will burn, sure, but the whole department might go with him. You'll get hit from every direction." Hila's voice didn't waver. "I didn't come back from Kandahar just to watch this city kill my brother on paper." Chris sank into the couch, running both hands through his hair. "They're going to say you hacked the system, or that you forged everything. They'll try to spin this into a disgruntled veteran with a grudge." Hila stared at the wall for a moment, then back at her brother. "Then I'll beat them at their own game." She picked up her second phone, the burner. Hila dialed the number. After 3 rings, a voice answered. "Yeah, Ava, I need you." The voice brightened. "Say less." Laya Banks, a journalist with a reputation for exposing what others wouldn't, owed Hila a favor. She ran an independent media platform with over 1 million subscribers. 24 hours later, Hila stood in the back room of an underground newsroom. Laya was focused on her laptop, reviewing the footage. "This is solid," she said, pointing to the screen. "Courtroom cam timestamp matches the schedule, and Cooper's actions are clear. The body cam footage is even better. It shows him threatening at least 3 civilians. Internal memos are all there, even deleted footage from the holding cells." Hila nodded. Want me to run this live? Laya asked. We can do it as an exclusive air everything names, badges, chain of command. I want them to feel the walls close in. Hila replied, her tone resolute. The next morning, the video was released at 7:03 a.m. By 7:10, it had been shared 20,000 times. By 7:40, it was trending in every major city. Decorated Navy SEAL targeted in courtroom by known abusive cop. News stations scrambled to cover it. The police commissioner called a press conference, but Cooper was already on temporary leave, though the department wouldn't confirm it publicly. By noon, the footage had reached Capitol Hill. But the internet erupted in anger. The reality was more dangerous. At 9:16 p.m., Hila's door was kicked in. 3 plainclothes men entered, no badges, no warrant. They weren't there to talk. Hila moved quickly, disarming one, slamming another into the wall, and breaking the wrist of the third. Standing over them, chest heaving, she said, "This is what they send when they can't control the message." The first man moaned, his gun in her hand. "Tell your bosses," she leaned in close to him. "I've survived worse. I've trained killers, I've buried brothers. You think I'm scared of 3 suits with sidearms?" The sound of sirens in the distance filled the room. Hila walked calmly to the door. "Run," she said, pointing toward the hallway. "You've got 10 seconds. They didn't wait for 2. Chris emerged from the bedroom, wide-eyed. "I thought they were going to kill you." Hila softened for a moment. "They don't get to write the ending, Chris. We do." Outside, the night was thick with tension. The storm of headlines and political panic was just beneath the surface. But inside, there was clarity for the first time in weeks. They had struck first, now they just had to survive the strike back. The courtroom was packed, tight with reporters, civilians, students, and even off-duty cops. Not for a celebrity scandal, but for a hearing that began with a shove and turned into a national reckoning. No cameras were allowed inside, but everyone had seen the video. They'd heard Hila's words, read the memos, and felt the rage. Chris sat at the defense table, no shackles, no cuffs. He kept looking at Hila, who sat tall and calm, her eyes forward, mouth in a firm, unreadable line. She hadn't flinched once, not when their apartment was raided, not during the online debates, and certainly not when the police union president spoke against her. During the hearing, the prosecutor announced the charges against Chris Campbell would be dropped due to new evidence. The courtroom fell silent as the judge declared Chris free to go. The relief hit Chris hard, but Hila remained composed. She placed a hand on his shoulder, a small smile on her lips. The room erupted, but Hila guided Chris outside, where the air felt lighter. Outside, Hila addressed the crowd, telling them it was time for accountability. When asked if she felt vindicated, she replied, "Not yet, not until this stops happening to families without cameras or lawyers." News of Cooper's arrest spread quickly, sparking an investigation into the precinct. It wasn't complete justice, but it was a start. Back home, the apartment was peaceful. Hila smiled as she watched Chris eat, finally calm. He thanked her for standing by him. And Hila reminded him, when someone kicks you in a place where justice is supposed to live, you fight back. That night, Hila reflected on how far they had come. The fight wasn't over, but it was moving forward. She felt victory, not just for herself, but for the families who had never had a chance. A few weeks later, things in the city had started to settle, but the impact of what had happened was far from fading. The footage of Cooper's assault and the subsequent investigation had sparked a ripple effect. Public outcry, once a simmering undercurrent, had become a steady call for change. The story had spread, and now the conversation was everywhere, from neighborhood discussions to city council meetings, and even on the steps of the courthouse where it all began. Hila hadn't expected such widespread attention, but she wasn't one to shy away from it. She continued her work, quietly but with purpose. She had already begun reviewing more cases, more files that had long been ignored. And with the evidence they had, the system could no longer pretend it wasn't broken. She spent long hours at her desk, her fingers flying over the keyboard, connecting dots and pushing through the layers of bureaucracy that shielded the guilty. Chris, meanwhile, was slowly rebuilding his life. No longer in chains, he was back in school, his mind slowly shifting away from the memories of his arrest. He was healing, but it wasn't fast. He still looked over his shoulder at times, unsure of the world around him. Yet, with each passing day, he was getting stronger, more confident in his own voice. One afternoon, Ela received a message from Zachary, her contact in internal affairs. The email was short but filled with weight. "I'm starting a new investigation. I need your help." Ela exhaled deeply as she sat back in her chair. This was just the beginning. The fight wasn't over, and it wouldn't be over until the system that allowed abuse was torn down. She thought about the faces she had seen, the families, the young men, the old women, all of them who had stood with her. She had promised them she would fight, and now she was more determined than ever. Justice wasn't just about one trial, one bad cop, or one courtroom. It was about a movement she was now leading, one step at a time. But the road ahead would be long, and she knew there would be more battles to face. As the sun set, Ela took a deep breath and looked out the window. Change was coming, slowly but surely. Note: this story is entirely fictional and created for the purpose of raising awareness. It highlights issues of responsibility, justice, and the importance of treating everyone with respect and dignity. We firmly oppose violence, prejudice, and injustice in all forms. Viewer discretion is advised.